Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Encounter Church. So happy to see you. Hope you had a great week. We're going to start by singing some songs. I would love it if you would stand up and sing with us.
I am who you say I am. Perhaps creation longs to have the words to sing, but this joy is mine. With 1,000 hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000 more. Who else would die for our redemption? Whose resurrection means our rise? There isn't time enough to sing of all you've done, but I have eternity to try. With 1,000 hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000 more. You deserve it all. So you say praise to the Lord, to the Lamb, to the King of heaven, praise. For he rose, now he reigns. We will sing forever praise to the Lord, to the Lamb, to the King of heaven, praise. For he rose, now he reigns. We will sing forever. With 1,000 hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000 more. We sing praise to the Lord, to the Lamb, to the King of heaven, praise. For he rose, now he reigns. We will sing forever. With 1,000 hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000. We give you our worship, we give you our praise, Lord, because you are mighty.
The wind is watching every gesture of your hand. Waves of fear collapse at your command. I know tomorrow when the pressure rushes in, you'll be there to rescue me again. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. Here in your presence there will be no other throne. All my heart is yours and yours alone. The song of heaven and my soul will sing the same. Jesus Christ, the name above all names. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. Glory, glory, and 1,000 hallelujahs. Oh Lord my God, how great you are. Honor, power, and another hallelujah. Oh Lord my God, how great you are. Glory, glory, and 1,000 hallelujahs. Oh Lord my God, how great you are. Honor, power, and 1,000 hallelujah. Oh Lord my God, how great you are. How great you are. How great you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are. What a mighty God, what a mighty God you are.
He is mighty, he is worthy. Glory, glory.
You may be seated.
Humanity has endured every environment the world has to offer and has adapted, innovated, and overcome. And still, to this day, it struggles to understand its most complex challenge: people. This species can propel itself to the moon and back, yet fail even the most basic of social cues, transforming into abominations of themselves, such as the close talker,
Like my Instagram post yet. Why haven't you liked it yet? Can you go ahead and...
the office leech,
What's going on? Nothing? Cool. Dude, CrossFit this morning, totally bonkers. You been working out? Good talk.
and the dreaded bathroom conversationalist.
Bro, I like those shoes. Hey, do you have some chapstick I can borrow?
But there is hope, because we all struggle navigating the difficulties of relationships. Friendships are good, but we need people skills to make them great.
Good morning. Welcome to Encounter Church. My name is Chris Causey. I'm the lead pastor here. And today we're going to be wrapping up a series called People Skills, something we kicked off about a month ago. And kind of the simple essence, the thesis of this whole series is that the quality of your relationships affects the quality of life. Right? And that this very simple sentence has a lot to say about just what we experience in the course of every day. I mean, this past week, had a reminder, saw this play out in slow motion because I had a kid, my son, who was sick, and he's about 3. And so one of the things that you're doing when they get sick, naturally, is you're taking their temperature, right? And so as a family, we believe in very humanitarian temperature checks. There were alternate ways when I was growing up that was not as pleasant. And as a 15-year-old, I never appreciated it. And so, for us as a family, we want to help our kid. And so technology is advanced. You can stick this thing in their ear, and it's amazing. And, look, this YouTube shot, I mean, this kid is happy. I mean, he's basically begging for their temperature to be taken, right? It's like, tell me what my internal core temperature is, please. Right? And so, but when I go to my son to check his temperature, this is actual footage of what happens when I try to take his temperature, right? I mean, he just blows up on us. It's crazy. You would swear, I'm like, hey, can I chop off your ear? Let me just chop off your ear to check your temperature. That's the level of response that I get. But this week, I discovered something. I looked at him as he was doing this, and the trees were blowing back, and I said, Henry, I bet my temperature's higher than yours. And he was like, It's like, Henry, I bet Jenny, take my temperature because my number is going to be higher than Henry's. And he's like, it pulls up his ear, like hair is like trying to get her to take it. You need to understand, my son is increasingly becoming very, very competitive. And I noticed this, and I was like, man, he seems competitive. Now, I'm not competitive at all. There is no competitive bone in my body. It's a little sad. I'm not a fun person to play games with because I actually don't care if I lose. And I know for some of you, you revel not just in the win, but in the sting of the defeat of saying, take that, sucker, right? And seeing that's just not plays out with me. And so it's just not very fun. And so I have none of that in me, genetically speaking. I'm not saying that my wife does. I'm just saying that I don't have it at all, okay? And so you draw your own conclusions where he gets it from. But sure enough, he's so competitive that I'm able to ask and turn it into a competition and get him to do anything we needed him to do. And it was like, coming into this series around people skills, it was like, wouldn't it be nice if there was a key like that to being able to unlock and to increase the quality of your relationships? You see, I think there is. I think there is one central piece to this puzzle that we haven't talked about yet, and it's the most powerful one. In fact, in all the 4 weeks that we did in the helpfulness of dealing around conflict and forgiveness and kind of navigating all those tensions and the posture that we should have as we interact with people, there was one central piece to the puzzle that we hadn't gotten to. And it's one that I want to look at today. Part of the challenge is that by the time I get to it, you're not going to be surprised by it. Because I don't think our problem is the understanding of it. I think the problem we have with it oftentimes is actually standing under it and living it. And it's a simple sentence spoken by Jesus almost 2,000 years ago. It comes in the context of his probably most famous sermon. And in the midst of his most famous sermon, what we call the Sermon on the Mount, is arguably one of his most famous sentences. Now, it's helpful to know the Sermon on the Mount, a little bit about it is while there was a large crowd gathered that day, it really wasn't for the large crowd. In fact, it was essentially kind of the equivalent of people tuning in to an office meeting. They'd circled up around Jesus as Jesus was kind of launching into really rich, deep, kind of insightful teaching to these 12 disciples, these 12 followers that Jesus was coaching and mentoring and really kind of unpacking for them what eventually will become Christianity. And the 12 are gathered around him, and he's teaching them what we now call the Sermon on the Mount. And in the course of that, a group kind of is listening in because it's profound what he's saying. And then, about 1/3 of the way through, closer towards the end, he makes this transitional phrase. He's trying to convey, hey, everything I've said, let me give you the summary of it. And he says it like this: so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. I said this is arguably his most famous sentence spoken in the context of his most famous sermon. In fact, historically, kind of anecdotally, even if you didn't grow up in church, chances are you've heard this before. Maybe you didn't connect it to Christianity. You might have called it the Golden Rule. The reason it's called the Golden Rule, in case you're ever on Jeopardy and you're going to share the prizes with me, there was an emperor, Emperor Severus, who had reportedly heard this phrase spoken by Jesus and was so enamored by it, was so blown away by the insight that he thought he should see it every day. So he had it put in gold on his wall so that he would look at it every single day. And this is kind of the genius of how the Golden Rule became the Golden Rule. People saw that and it stuck. Now, what's helpful actually is that the Golden Rule gave us a way to compare what Jesus had said compared to what other world religions. In fact, when I sit down with people and they're processing faith and Christianity, they're like, well, Christianity is just one of a bunch of world religions and they're basically all the same. And I would say on the surface, yes, but substantively, no. And this is exactly what I mean when I say this. This is a perfect example. Most world religions, I would argue almost all world religions, have not the Golden Rule, they have the silver rule. The silver rule is don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. That concept, that idea can be found in world religions all around the globe. Don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. And this is one of the reasons people say, well, all religions are the same. Listen, Jesus says, do to others what you'd have them do to you. And, Zoroastrianism and Hinduism and like all these other faiths, they say essentially the same thing. Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. But I would argue the genius of Jesus is in the subtlety and the difference. You see, the silver rule, the don't do, well, if you don't murder someone today, congratulations. You've obeyed it, right? All you have to do to accomplish this one is don't do something mean to someone else. But to go through your day and keep the Golden Rule, it doesn't mean that you sit on the sidelines. Doesn't mean you just simply don't murder. I mean, Jesus understood this challenge, do to others what you would have them do to you, elevates it to a whole different level of what love looks like. It's a whole different picture of what love could be. Instead of measuring it by the bad that you don't do, it's measured by the good that you do. And what he essentially is saying to you is love is a verb. Like this is something you do. If the silver rule doesn't require any verbiage at all. I mean, you don't have to do any kind of verbing to accomplish the silver rule. You can sit there and you can be passive, whereas Jesus is saying, no, love is active. You go and you engage, you initiate, you choose, you do. It's not a feeling, It's not sentimentality, because that's another one of the observations when you kind of take a chronicle of world religions and how do they say something similar to what Jesus is trying to say here compared to what they were saying. And it's what most of them have is sentimentality, which is, I want to send good vibes. Or if you were starving and someone said, man, I want to send some good vibes to you, I hope it gets better. Or someone's like, hey, I want to give you a Grubhub gift card. Like, which one would you prefer? Good vibes or Grubhub? Let me answer it for you. Grubhub, right? You don't want sentimentality. You want something hot and something in front of you that you can eat. And this is what Jesus is saying. He's like, no, it's active. It's something we choose to do. And in probably the craziest, insightful way, he flips. So one of the biggest barriers, I think, to this verse being lived out, one of the biggest barriers in your life and in definitely my life, is my tendency to be selfish. To want what I want, when I want it, how I want it, right now or yesterday. Me gets in the way far more than I would like to be honest about. Like me hears Henry crying and wants to keep sleeping so that Jenny can get up, not me. Like selfishness creeps into our relationships. Selfishness gets in the way of our relationships getting better. We care about something else more than we care about them. We want something in our life more than we want them in our lives. And we do this, right? I mean, we don't sit down and say, oh, today, selfishness 3, selfless 0. But it plays out, whether it's a teenager and what they want to wear, whether it's your boss and the fact he doesn't care about your schedule. He just wants something done on his timetable when he wants it or she wants it. And this is why Jesus takes this tendency towards selfishness and he inverts it. He's like, no, love is selfless. But he does it in a way that pulls at our most skillful muscle, which is our selfishness. Because notice he says, do unto others what you would have them do to you. So what do you want to do? So it's this, if I were on the other side of me, what would I want to see? Because you know what you want. You know what you would want someone to do for you. And you can use that to your advantage in stepping out in love. You see, I think what Jesus had this brilliant insight in the way he inverts our selflessness is that you can use your story, I can use my story to mine and to figure out powerful ways of showing up in love. You ever had a pity party? Right? And when you throw a pity party, what do? You sit around, you imagine all the things that you didn't get that they got that you should have got. No one's there, no one cares. Right? The raise that you got passed up on, the promotion, fill in the blank. Right? You sit in it, and the whole thing is about what someone didn't do for you. But what if your pity parties paved the way for other people to experience a party? Like, what if in the midst of, like, you're a teenager and you go home and no one talked to you in that new school? Then you could throw a pity party, or you can look at that moment and say, you know what, that's a path forward. I'm going to make sure that the way I choose to live my life means that no one ever goes home the way I went home today. I'm going to show up tomorrow, and if I see a kid who's new, or if I see a kid who's sitting by himself, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down with them. You see, your miseries in your past, I think, can be keys to unlock ministries in your present. If you've ever walked through a divorce, if you've ever lost a parent, went through infertility, silently suffered and no one knew, There is a whole list of things that you could answer right now of what would you wish someone have done for you? How could if someone loved you in that season? You can answer that. If you've ever walked through a season where you were going through a hard time and you were busy, you now know how to serve your spouse who's in that season now. Right? Like there is a whole ton that can be mined from the miseries in your life. And I sincerely believe, because I've sat across from people, that your miseries looked at through these lenses can become ministries that transform people's lives. It really can. That when we start to imagine and we go through and we just reflect in their past, like, what do I wish someone had done for me? Maybe you're right now in the midst of a pity party about how lonely you feel, how disconnected you are. I want to challenge you this week. Invite someone to coffee. Reach out to someone who you know is probably lonely too. Because when you invert this thing, when you take our tendency to be self-centered and you keep that there, but you turn it into love, you can start to answer this question. If I were on the other side of me, what would I want to see? What would I want them to do? What would make my day different? And to simply start doing it. Because I think selfishness, honestly, is one of the barriers that gets in the way. Right? Because none of us, let's be real, none of us were surprised by Jesus' statement. You've heard it before. Maybe you called it the golden rule. Maybe you called it Matthew 7:12. But regardless, it's not something new to you. The challenge is not that it's new. The challenge is it's hard to do. Because you and me get in the way. And if you and I are willing to say, you know what? Love is active. It's something I'm going to actively seek out this week. I'm going to find someone and show them somehow what I wish someone had showed me. Maybe you grew up in a rough family, right? I mean, like, and you wish you had someone step into your life and guide you to have helped you get to where you are today. You can do that for someone else, even if you never had it. This is crazy how genius and insightful it is. I mean, it's the ultimate people skill. Love is the ultimate people skill. Not the sentimentality, not the oh girl, I'll climb a mountain for you and I'll swim an ocean for you and there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I'd be like, I like you, but I'm going to look for a tram when I get through the mountain. And if there's a boat, I might take the boat because let's just be real, there's sharks in them waters and I don't want to drown. I mean, we have a sentimental culture around love. But when we actually show up and we start to do it and we say, man, if I was on the other side of me like they are right now, what would I want to see? And we start to do it, crazy things start to happen. Now, I think, honestly, though, there's another barrier in this passage. When Jesus says so in everything, he's doing something absurd. Okay, I know I said absurd because this phrase here removes all excuses, all exclusions, removes all the barriers and the boundaries. He was like, to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And in everything, that can, I think, sometimes lead to paralysis for us and how to love. And here's why. Because there's a cultural difference that you and I have that this context did not. Jesus is talking to a group of 12 who, in a world at a time, the average person never went more than 100 miles from where they grew up. The biggest city in this time period was about 1 million people, but most people never saw that. The world population was in the millions. So the world was so much smaller. You could go through the course of everyday life, and what played out 100 miles from you never even crossed your radar. What played out 5 miles from you, unless it was significant, never crossed your radar. You didn't know what was going on in other people's lives outside of your kind of community, tribe, village. But we live in a world where the world is bigger and yet simultaneously smaller. You can open up your smartphone right now, click on a news app, and know what's happening tens of thousands of miles away. And not only know what's happening, there's a picture of a human face, probably carrying a baby, and it's a story about someone. I mean, it's like last night, an alert, and it was like 100 people died at a soccer match. It's like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. Like 100 people lost loved ones. 2,000 years ago, 100 years ago, you and I would have not known that country even existed. And last night, I get a report about that country and 100 people perishing there. And I think in some ways, it leads to this compassion fatigue. You scroll through your social media, you see all the suffering, you see all the struggles, you see how everybody else's life is great, and you see how your life is not great. And it just creates this emotional kind of drag. And you get to a point and you start to look around and you're like, man, there's nothing I can do. If in everything means everything for us in a way that it didn't mean for them. You were bound by time and space. How far could your feet take you? And we're limitless. When the hurricane played out this week, 1,000+ miles away, I was concerned about people I know that live there. Hey, praying for you, because this is an actual thing. And some people didn't text praying for you, but praying for them because it's like, man, I know way too many people in those areas. I don't even have time to text all the people I know to tell them I'm praying. I'm just going to pray. Because then if they text, it's going to get overwhelming because then I'm like trapped in and like, let's just be real. I don't know about you. I hate text messaging. It's like the awkward conversation that never ends. Like there's never ever like the end and you delete it and then it like starts up fresh again when they reach back out. It's just like a never ending conversation. And if you experience text messaging in real life the way you experience text message on your phone, like we would all hate it, right? It would be like stuck at a party and the person's just standing there. You're like, don't you need to go somewhere? No, just waiting for a moment to say something else. Squirrel. It's like we'd hate it. And so anyways, I'm like, I don't even want to get sucked into that vortex of text messaging, right? Like I'm just going to invent a way of like telling people, peace out, like I'm done with this conversation, don't text me anymore. Because I just haven't figured it out yet. Anyways, but it's just like overwhelming. I don't even want to, like this is how much thought I put into caring this week. Man, if I text all those people, then they might text me back, and then I'm going to spend all the time having to respond to them, and then I'm going to be like, how do I tell them? Because, man, they might have just lost something significant, or then they're going through a hard time. I don't even have time for that because I'm trying to navigate. What if 25 of them respond they're going through a hard time? So it paralyzes you, doesn't it? Unfortunately, one of the things that's really helpful is I had a mentor who gave me some guardrails to like help navigate what does love look like. Doesn't minimize what Jesus is saying. It just helps me to maximize doing what Jesus said. And the first guardrail is this: do for one what you wish you could do for all. Do for one what you wish you could do for all. So in the midst of all those things, all those people I know, I texted one person. And it was just going to be available if they needed anything. I was like, all right, hey man, I'm praying for you and your family. Like, let me know what you need. And I meant it. If he'd have texted back and said, I need this, it'd have been like, done. Do for one what you wish you could do for all. Yes, has thousands of lives been upended? Are the death toll way over 100 at this point? Yes. I can't change that. But I can do for one what I wish I could do for all. And sometimes the capacity for that increases. But start with one. Maybe it's this week going to work, and maybe there's one person you could start eating lunch with once a month to invest in them and their career. the way someone did for you or the way no one ever did for you that you wish someone had done. Or maybe it's someone that you know in your family who's going through a hard time, and you can pick that one person to be a person that you're going to actively encourage, that you're going to show up, that you're going to text, that you're going to send things to. Do for one what you wish you could do for all. And the second one is the reminder he taught me that your job is to empty your cup, not fill theirs. Man, this was so liberating for me. Because as someone who's a pastor, there's a part of me that when I interact with people, I can feel the emptiness in their cup. I mean, it's just, I don't know why. I don't know if it's something supernatural or if it's just something kind of working with people. But I imagine if you're a social worker, if you're a teacher, right, like you've probably built that muscle up. Some of you are far more compassionate than I am. Like I'm not a very super compassionate person. My wife is. And like she would be like, oh my goodness, look at that, those poor people. And I'm like, they brought that on themselves, right? I just move on. You know, it's like circle of life. You know, it's like I'm the people watching the National Geographic specials. And I was like, you know what? It's probably a good thing that little like baby zebra didn't make it, because clearly that baby zebra had no clue what a pack is. Right? Like just weeding them out, people, weeding them out. The strong survive. Like that's me. And the fact that I can do this means that any of you can do this and fill the empty. And I'm telling you, when you sit across from someone and you see the depth of how empty their cup is, they've lost their home, they've lost their marriage, they're walking through a tragedy or grief you can't even comprehend. You see the emptiness of your cup, and your tendency is to want to fill it, to make a measurable difference. And the challenge is that is impossible. And I remember vividly hearing him say that phrase that day, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's it. Jesus never told me to fill their cup. He told me to empty mine. So what does emptying my cup look like in this moment? And I'll leave the rest up to him and them. But I'll walk away knowing that I've poured in something that maybe in their eyes isn't enough, but I've poured out everything that I had. And it really does, I think, help to alleviate the paralysis that this passage can produce sometimes, living in a world that's so interconnected, that's so intertwined. And that if we're willing to say, you know what, do for one what you wish you could do for all, and empty your cup, not fill theirs, I think you could go into this week and do some radical impact. It may not be instant. You may not end up on a news broadcast about, because of what you did. But you'll start to transform the trajectory of someone's life. And this really is a people skill. I mean, when we say people skill, love is the ultimate people skill. So I like really funny, clever, practical jokes. I tell my wife all the time, I'm the funniest person I know, and we're still kind of working through that tension because she disagrees. But I came across this story of these three high school kids who were in a Chicago school district, and they were kind of in their senior year, as almost the year was done, and they're like, let's do a prank. Let's do an epic prank. So they came up with this idea that they were going to kind of hack the projector system and take it over at the end of the school day. And so they're scheming and they're planning and they're like coming in and during the evenings and they're like testing this idea out, and it's like starting to work. And one of them stumbles upon a password that gives them access to the entire school hardware control system. Turns out the IT person didn't change the password from the default, and they discovered it. So now it meant that they had the ability to turn on hundreds of projectors, change the volume, in hundreds of classroom speakers. If the teacher turned the projector off, they could turn the projector immediately back on. They wrote code for this, and their idea to pull a prank in one classroom became an idea to pull a prank in all the classrooms with over 11,000 students in attendance. And so about 5 minutes from the end of the day, a countdown came on. And it says, exciting announcement in 5 minutes. The teachers didn't know what it was. They assumed this was like an end-of-the-year superintendent announcement because all the projectors like turned on and they were like, did the thing. And it's like, so it like built up this like kind of suspense, right? And then it gets 0 and all of a sudden it's this, okay? All right, and it's like, not the picture, it's like, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna turn around, desert you, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like this music video starts playing. They essentially rickroll 11,000 students as their senior prank. Genius, right? And on a side note, I have 2 observations about this video that you didn't ask for. One is, do you remember the movie Speed, where it was like, if this bus drops beneath 60 miles per hour, it's going to blow up? I think there was a version of Speed happening in this video, because I'm like, when I was watching, I was like, I think someone told this dude, if you stop moving during the making of this music video, you die. Because, I mean, he's just like doing this, like even when he doesn't have to, he's just like, I mean, and it's ridiculous. And, like, his voice does not fit, right? Because, like, he looks like an 18-year-old boy who hasn't experienced puberty yet. And yet, he's like, never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to turn around, desert you. I mean, you're like, how are you doing that with your voice, right? Anyways, don't feel bad for him. He's made about $12 million off of people pulling Rick-rolling pranks. Okay, so, like, he's liking the Rick-rolling because it's nice for him, okay? But the point is that these people were sitting in a classroom and they're watching this thing happen, and what they get is not what they expect. And in some ways, I think this is ultimately the genius of Jesus. He was like, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. The law and the prophets was a fancy way of saying all of the Jewish scriptures, all of the words, all of the heart, the mission, the passion, the pursuit of God that we see in what we call the Old Testament, what they would have called the Jewish scriptures. He's like, this love in action, this sums it all up. This encapsulates it. This is the embodiment of that. And he knows because he is the embodiment of that. He is love. He's not just going to give a bunch of sentimental statements. No, he's going to demonstrate love in his teaching. He's going to demonstrate love in his actions, in the way that he interacts with people who are the least of these, the forgotten, the neglected, the brokenhearted, the ones who feel unloved. He loves them all in a way that transforms them, that draws them, that changes them. He's saying, look, when we do this, they see me. They see my love for them, my passion for them. This is why on our board we have this phrase outside. It's at the core of everything we do, that we believe love does. It's the driver in how we live and how we act as people, because we believe it's a verb. We believe it changes and transforms relationships, because when we show up and we begin to do it, we are showing up in his name with his love. And it's a crazy Rick-rolling of all of society, except that they get him. And they get his grace. And the world needs his grace and his love and his peace and his joy and his chain-breaking power. But it also affects how we move and act as a church. We talked about this past week, just Hurricane Ian and the devastating effects that it had. I mean, if you were watching your news, right, this is part of the paralysis. We see stuff like this. And we see images like this, whole streets that were demolished. You woke up that morning. Your life looked normal. Your home was there. And you went to bed that night in a different place, and your home wasn't there anymore. You lost everything. Your baby pictures of your kids, your favorite couch that you used to relax on every time you got home from work. Like all of that erased. I mean, it was devastating. And that's why, as a church, when we look at stuff like this, we believe that love does. Which is why, as a church, because you, those who call this church home, you give generously. Many of you give regularly, automated. Like you, even during the pandemic, some of you started to give for the first time. You'd never given to a church, but you saw what church love in action looks like. And so you started to give. And because of your generosity, right, because of the increase, the more that we give as a church, the more we practice this love, the more we can do. Because of what you did this week, we were able to step into this situation, and we were able to give 60 families, not just sanitary needs, because guess what? When you lose everything, a toothbrush becomes important. Deodorant starts to matter. And we were able to give those basic needs, and then we were able to say, hey, here's food for your family of 4. That we were able to do that for over 60 families through a partnership and a ministry that we have. Right? Yes. That your generosity is at work because we believe love does. And that the more we lean into this, I think there's a fear that the church has, because I think even connected with this passage, we see people take advantage of us. We see people manipulate us. And so oftentimes when we encounter what the church was meant to look like, we don't have a box for it. So we assume, oh, they're just trying to get my money, or they're just trying to manipulate me. And it's like, no. We just believe love does. We just think that it makes a difference. So this is what we do. Like, I joke all the time, but it's true. Like, if tomorrow you decided, you know what? I believe the Bible tells me to live my life where I financially put God first, and so I'm going to start to do that, whatever that looks like. That maybe for some of you, you look at the scriptures and you see a tithe, and the idea of a tithe being 10% of what you make, right? Which is what our family does. And you started giving that way and serving that way. Now let's just say some of you wrote a check and we had $1 million extra tomorrow. My salary would not change. I'd still be driving my 2003 Buick LeSabre, right? Our quality of life as a family would not shift or change. It would just unleash more good. Because the world needs this. And we're able to do this as a church because of you. And you are able to do this as you because of what He did for you. He's our starting point. He's ultimately what we're showing people when we love, when we demonstrate the greatest of all people skills. And before you leave, I just want to give you access to probably one of the most powerful resources we've ever produced. You can find that encounterchurch.com/love. We'll look at that later. But it'll just be up for a little while. I just wanted to give you that gift because you need it. Because love is the people skill the world most desperately needs. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for your good, your grace, your love, that you love, that love did so that love does today. Thank you for the way that we're able to step in with families because of people's generosity. Thank you for the way that we're able to, in advance, transform lives this week because we go to work and we are actively looking for someone to step into that we can show love does to them. Father, thank you for the power of love, for the impact that love has. I pray that you would help us to walk and to move and to live that out. And Father, for those who've maybe wandered through, passed into the doors or online today and are trying to process what does love look like, and they've stumbled across you, I pray that even right now, that they would see that you are a better way, a different way, that you are a forgiving, freeing, setting free kind of way. And that even now in their hearts, that they'd say, Jesus, I want to know more of you. Jesus, I want to follow you. And thank you, Father, for your love. And we say, you did it, so will I. You loved, so will I. In Jesus' name, amen. Father, so we just want to, with the final song today, we just want to remind you of who God the Father and God the Son and God the Holy Spirit, what He did in the creating and the making. So we want to close out today with a really beautiful poetic song that captures that heartbeat that He has for you and that He has for your friends, your neighbors, your loved ones, and even your enemies. And so I want to invite you to stand. And our team is going to lead us in that song in declaring who that God is. And I hope that in the midst of it, maybe you'll use some of the time we have carved out for you to be able to simply say, okay, this week, who can I show love to that I'm sitting across, that I'm living with? And help me to do that, God. Let's sing.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain. Your syllable empty If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. The wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still fall shy, then we'll sing again 100 million times. Salvation, chase down my heart for all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. And if you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. You gladly chose surrender, so will I. I can see your heart in million different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But would a measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Thinking about what love does, that is what Jesus did. He's an ultimate example of what love does. He gave up everything for every single one of us, and he would do it over and over a billion more times. And so we are just called to go out and love the best way we can, a little bit at a time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to press in and you want to share and give and step into that generosity that we have and that we're able to use to help other people, then you can, we have a few ways you can give. You can give through the Encounter Church app. We have a box out there. You can throw cash or checks or whatever in on the counter of the cafe. You can also give at encounterchurch.com/give. And so that's a way that you can give to the Encounter Church. And as Chris said, like there is no, all of that goes out to help those in need. We have something for you today, a sticker that you can put on your car, your refrigerator, your door. I remember when I was little, I had like a closet door slam full of stickers. But if you want a sticker, please grab one on the way out. There's going to be some out on the counter. Chris will have some to hand out. Student ministry tonight, we meet from 6 to 7:30. We're having Subway. Hope that you can make it if you're in middle school or high school. 2 weeks from today, we're taking our students either bowling or miniature golfing. I haven't decided yet. I'm trying to determine which one I can definitely win at. Because unlike Chris, I am very competitive, and I have to win. So if you want to join us for that, we would love to have you if you're in middle school or high school. We hope you have an awesome, awesome week, and we look forward to seeing you back next week at Encounter Church. God bless and take care.